Hello and welcome back to the Level Cap Podcast, your one-stop shop for the past, present, and future of Level 99 games, past, present, future, or otherwise.
What's the otherwise? What's outside of the past, present,
Time.
future? Well, that's kind of inclusive of time. We're talking about what's the otherwise?
Okay, not time. Time.
Marco, you're always leaving yourself these outs, but I think it may just belie some insecurity because there's nothing outside of the past, present, and future. That's all there is.
Are you sure? Maybe you are just very limited. Okay, look. I'm your host, Marco DeSantos, and with me is my obviously very limited co-host, Brad Dalton Jr. So, our special guest over here, who knows a lot about time, will probably back me up on this. There's stuff outside the past, present, and future, right? Chris Solis?
Hi, I'm Chris. Thanks for having me on. And yes, there's definitely there's the past, present, and future, and I happen to know a lot about those things.
Yeah, but is there something outside them?
Yeah, I can tell you about it.
See, Brad, Chris agrees.
I guess the only thing that's not necessarily in the past, present, or future would be time travelers.
That's right. They're in all of them simultaneously.
Pro segue. Terran Encounters is a game where you play as a time traveler.
Oh, really?
Yeah, tell us a bit about Terran Encounters, Chris.
Yeah, so
start with Terran Odyssey. Like give us the whole history.
Yeah, give us everything.
All right, so Terran Odyssey was my first game. I launched it in about 2015. And it's a battle card game with a unique theme. And this theme is about this world, these worlds colliding. It's this fantasy world, and you have these time portals opening, and things are coming from the future, the past, and you end up with this mix of characters and environments. And that was the theme of this JRPG party-based battle card game. It took about 2 years to develop. We shipped it out. We did pretty good. It was awesome. And now here we are working on Terran Encounters, which is a separate game, just to be clear. It's its own standalone thing. And it takes place in the same universe, but it combines a battle card game and a drafting game to make Terran Encounters. So this is a drafting battle card game about dueling time travelers. So this time you're playing as the character that opens these portals and mixes these worlds together, and you're going to be doing that against the other player.
Yeah, and this is a bit different than the original Odyssey, because in Terran Odyssey, it was truly like two fully formed RPG parties meet each other on the field of battle and take each other out Final Fantasy style. But with Encounters, you actually build your party as you go. You build spells as you go. You are, working to kind of create a unique party that will be able to take out your opponent. So the game is much more about the development of your team than about just testing your team against the opponent's team.
Exactly.
Because it's a deck builder, right? It's a deck builder.
It's a drafting.
Yeah,
drafting game.
Exactly. It's not a deck builder. It's a drafting game. So in the first one, you would have 4 characters only ever, and then you either broke that comp or you didn't. And like you were saying, you build these characters up. You're going to be drafting these characters essentially, and then putting them into groups and compositions to be more effective against the other player.
Yeah, the original Terran Odyssey was more LCG style, where you build your deck outside of the game, and then you bring your deck to the table and you battle with other players. Well, you can tell the story, Chris, but you're saying that you liked the one day you played it as a draft and decided that you liked that more than the actual LCG deck builder part, and so decided to make a full drafting game.
Yeah, so just one night at the Gamma Trade Show, we did a draft, and we just zero testing. We shuffled all the cards together, we drafted it, and it just really worked. And it worked because the game uses an action point system. It doesn't have a quote-unquote mana curve. You just choose how much of your turn you want to spend on different things. So being able to draft it in that way worked really, really well. And then after that, internally, that's the only way we played the game ever. And
wow.
And you would think your decks might be weaker or whatnot, but that really wasn't the case. People could still build basically exactly what they wanted. Just kind of mixing it up based on the picks you get. Because it's class-based. It's not like you have a mana curve of different colors. You have a warrior class, you have a guardian class, and they have abilities. And what do I need to fill in this team comp to do this thing?
Yeah, me and Chris have been kicking this game back and forth for, I guess it's been like a year and a half now or something. But like we'd play it and I'd be like, I'm not sure, I don't know, and he'd go back and he'd change it again, and then I'd be like, I don't know. I'm really hard to work with. Designers, by the way, if you ever think of getting a game published by Level 99, it's a long trek.
So,
Um,
so Chris,
but I
is that how he gives
yeah.
you feedback? Like, do you just play games and Brad just goes like, I don't know, and then nothing else? Is that how it goes, or does he actually give you constructive feedback? Please say he does.
Real talk, Brad definitely gives extremely constructive feedback. I know this was an opportunity for like a joke, but it's just true. So like
No,
I don't
no,
know.
no, no. This wasn't a joke. This was me trying to clarify for the listeners.
No, really.
I am pretty harsh though. I mean, I will not hesitate to say this is not good enough yet. And we said that a lot of times for Terran Encounters, and Chris is a really incredible designer because he went back and he changed it again and again and again. And we finally played it and we were like, this is really, really good. And and I'm 100% confident in printing it and publishing it, and I know that the fans are going to really enjoy it. And so, there's not it's a rare person who will go back and design again and again until the game is 100% solid. And so I really admire that.
Thank you. That feels good.
Wow. So okay, Chris, give us the lowdown on this new hot game that you have coming towards us. Give us a spiel about what Terran Encounters is going to be all about.
Okay. So the core mechanic of this game, there's two core mechanics. There's drafting and there's grouping. I'll tell you about drafting first. So you have just your time traveler, and when you start the game, and what you want to do is defeat that traveler and remove them from the timeline. When you kill that traveler will die, but they could just rewind time, right? They're time travelers. So how could you kill time traveler? Mm-hmm. Each time you defeat the traveler, they lose stability from that timeline. So what you want to do is remove all the stability of the timeline and then actually kill them to remove that traveler from the timeline. And there's a couple different ways in the game that you can remove stability from the time traveler, and that lends itself to 3 different play styles in this game. Let's talk about drafting for a minute. So at the end of your turn, you get to draft in the past, present, or future. And the way you look at 3 cards, you would choose one, put one back on top face up, and remove one from the game. And this is how you gain new characters and artifacts and things to play the game with. And each time period has a very unique theme. So like, if I go to the present, I'll get effects that do things now. If I go to the past, you can find things that do things again.
Also, you generally find like the bigger, tougher units in the past, like golems and monsters and more primordial type of characters.
Yeah, you won't find like
hardy
humans in there.
warriors.
You're gonna find like legendary creatures and beasts and like
Yeah,
things that are epic.
old deities, stuff like that. Yeah.
And the present has more like your fantasy races. The present probably most strongly represents the original fantasy Terran Odyssey universe. And the future is like this dystopian machine-ridden place, and their effects are better over time. So if you get this character, then over time this machine will build up to be ridiculous, and you can use those themes to kind of like lend to your playstyle to bring these characters into play.
The future era is really cool too. You have the robots are done in a really cool way in Terran Encounters. You have like energy creatures, like kind of like lesser elementals. You have engineers. It's neat. It's really neat. The whole world feels a lot to me like it reminds me a lot of Chrono Trigger, but without being like a parody or anything, like a real, almost like spiritual successor, I guess. And I guess that's probably one of your big inspirations. Am I right?
I've never played Chrono Trigger.
You've never played Chrono Trigger? Well, then I have to compliment you for getting close to all the things that I really like about that game and setting.
Original game,
trying.
do not steal.
Yeah, I know that's
Yeah.
I know that's hard to believe, but I genuinely never played it, and I know that's a sin. But at this point, I'm glad I haven't. So then I don't feel like I pulled from something, But I love time travel stories. I love like worlds mashing together. So I just really thought about like what makes those kind of things special to me. When I themed this game,
You see characters move between game to game. Like you'll see, like there's characters in Terran Odyssey, and you see their like their grandkids and their kids and grandkids in the future era in Terran Encounters.
Yeah, exactly. You can see the children of the
so-
original heroes, the you built your deck around, and they're engineers now because they have to adapt to the future. But they're still those races, and they're really cute and things like that. You know.
Yeah, it's great. Aside from the from that too, there's one other thing about the time portal decks I wanted to say before you moved on, and that's that the game has a modular setup. Each of the time period decks will contain certain kinds of units, and that will change from game to game. So in this game, when you go to the past, you might find, like dragons and golems and primordials, but in another game you go to the past, you might find, like tribal warriors and and behemoths and like giant fish or something. I'm
Giant
making some of
fish.
these up, but you get the idea. Like the draft pools change, even though the periods remain the same. The draft pools can change from game to game, and so with the same travelers and even the same. You can't use the same strategy because you'll have different units at your disposal that are going to give you different abilities.
So you're telling me that there's nearly infinite replayability.
Well, it is level 99 game.
That's
There
true.
really is. Like we've played the same
that's
game
the hallmark.
with the same units, and the game will not be the same. Just out of the nature of it being a draft and the nature of team comp. Like you can have the same cards, put them in a different way, and it's a different game in a very real way. So those things combined, it's you have to adapt it. The game's really organic, so it feels really good to play that each time being a little different, But the past, regardless of all those creatures you might find, still have that theme. The past kind of wants to do something twice or again, so you can kind of generally know what kind of piece you're looking for when you're strategizing.
Okay. So can we talk about grouping?
Yes, let's talk about grouping. So in this game, you get 4 action points, and you want to spend them all on your turn. And you can use that to bring these characters and stuff into play. And at the end of your turn, you put them into groups. Now, this game doesn't have any out-of-turn counterplay in a positive way. When you first hear that, you're like, what? But hear me out. So when you group your characters, you get to put them into a leader and a support. And on your opponent's turn, they can only attack the leader, right? So just on that first mechanic, I'm choosing at least half my units you cannot interact with and putting the others in the front. So maybe I'll put my tank in the front or my wall or my aggressive unit. At the end of my next turn, I can recomp. So maybe that warrior that was out there doing damage needs to recover. So I'll pull him back and put him behind the paladin and let him heal, and I'll regroup. And this is very much, team recomposition and adaptation every single turn. And the characters have abilities that are defensive in nature. Like, for example, armor, right? This character has armor, so you might put it in front, right? But this character has armor share. So if I put them on as a support character, they'll give their leader armor. And then I can use that defensively. And next turn I can use it defensively differently to give a different character armor. So I'm constantly recomping and rechanging my characters to defend myself.
Yeah, so each of these abilities flows forward and backwards. So you can support to buff your front guy, you can support to protect your back guy, and vice versa. So so everything really is useful two ways.
And the way I regroup is basically, in a way, free blocking and making all those same decisions I would have made outside of my turn in like a normal battle card game. Except now
from the flow standpoint, the thing that makes this really neat is that while your opponent's taking their turn, you can be doing your draft. Because you don't have to be watching to react to their turn. You can just, they can do their thing. Like you do your draft, and then they're like, okay, I killed this guy and that guy and that guy, and then you can move on with the turn. So it works out pretty well in that sense. The game really keeps both players engaged all the time through the play.
So you don't just sit there and watch your opponent play. That's
right,
good to hear.
Yeah.
And since you're done with your decisions when you end your turn, while you're drafting, the analysis paralysis is like way low. Like, what can I do in my turn? I'm doing it. You don't have to be like, what do they block with? Or these kind of decisions that add ambiguity to it. So
And the neat thing too is that every single unit in this game has one of these support abilities. So no matter what unit it is, they will have a power, and your victory is going to be determined by how well you're able to leverage and combine these different powers. So knowing you have a certain kind of power, which time period you're going to draft from, which kind of unit are you going to draft from, in order to to build upon that foundation, because there are a lot of, I guess what I'm saying is there's a lot of reasons to take any particular card in the draft. And Encounters does this really well, and it giving you 3 or 4 different ways to use each card that you pull out, and leverage it in different ways at different times. And so you might get an effect that you don't need right now, but now it informs your future decisions and future strategy.
So speaking of like how you draft, I think Brad brought to light something that I find really interesting about this game, and actually was something that made me even more invested into actually getting and playing this game, is when you started talking about how each of the travelers has a specific set of spells, right?
traveler spells are really awesome, and they lend themselves to the drafting portion of this game. So, a traveler has 3 unique spells. The game has 6 elements, like earth, fire, wind, dark, light, right? And when you pick a character, they'll have between 0 and 2 elements. Most of them have 2. Like if they have less, it's a drawback. And those elements that you control bolster your traveler spells. And your traveler spells always use all 6 elements in unique ways. So, for example, I have my basic spell, and if it does something, I'm just going to make up a card right now. This card's not in the game. It does 10 damage, right? If I have 1 fire, then I do 10 more.
Yeah, fireball, 10 damage.
Okay, that card does exist. And then if I have 2, it does 10 more. So now, if I have 2 fire, I can pay 1 action to do 30 damage, which is ridiculous. But I can 1 AP for 10 damage is decent. So if I draft these fire characters, I'm going to bolster my fireball. That's my basic spell, and a basic spell always uses 1 element. The advanced spell uses 2 elements. So maybe it uses wind and earth, right? And if I have that set, that spell's bolstered. But because the requirement's higher, the power curve is steeper. And finally, you have your ultimate spell, which uses the remaining 3. And when you curve that spell, it gets ridiculous, and that's how you can finish games. So you can gain power not only just by drafting units for their stats and abilities, but for the elements, almost like in a minor set collection way. Like, I'm going to get these elements so I can super meteor your team, and that's awesome. And you might draft differently just for the spell portion of the game.
And
Wow.
it's important to note too that like you receive these characters, and they're bolstering your spells, and they're doing this passively, so they don't even have to fight. So you might get characters for non-combat reasons, even if a guy has really low attack or is not particularly defensive or have a great ability. You might draft him just to bolster your spells.
And if I'm understanding this correctly, every single character has every single element represented on their cards, which means there's
Each traveler has spells representing every element, and each character that you can recruit has 1 or 2 elements typically. There are a couple really powerful ones, like the primordials, that give you like 3 or 4 elements.
I see. And so each traveler uses these elements in different ways. So in a sense, no element is ever useless entirely to a specific traveler. It's not like those games where
Right.
it's like picking a traveler is not picking a color in Magic, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. So there's still a strong identity to it. Yeah. Like if I pick
Jin, he's like the dark character, quote unquote. So his basic spell is the dark one. So he's going to use dark pretty often. But you're right, his ultimate and his meteor use all the other stuff. So it's they just have different values to different characters. And even then, I don't even know if one is more valuable than the other. Because if I wanted to do meteor Jin, and that's what I'm doing, and I'm just drafting fire earth, that's my build. Like, I can do that. I can play the game that way, and it's fine. Or I can just take a bunch of dark and just silence your dudes all day, or I can spread it out evenly. But if you focus on something, you're going to get a better version of that card. It's not just you're rewarded for doing that if that's what you want to do, or you're doing that to adapt to the situation.
Yeah. But one thing it does do is it gives a really strong identity to the different character builds. Like if you're Jin and you play a lot of Dark, then your spell Silence is really valuable and you become a control character. And you're able to like level drain and remove abilities and, pierce through enemy lines. Whereas if you are playing Jin and you're playing a Fire Earth build for the Meteor spell, then you're playing a direct damage Spike character who who is able to break through heavy defenses. And so even with the same characters, the build you get is going to kind of create a certain deck archetype mid game, which is really neat.
That's awesome. Yeah. Wait,
which is directly a combination of both the drafting mechanic and the battle portion of the game. So that's a lot of fun, and it's only 3 cards. So there's a lot of gameplay just from those 3 cards.
Just from the 3 spells. Wow. So wait, I think I just realized something. Is this a handless game?
It's a low hand game. You draft the cards into your hand. You could play them later.
Okay.
But you have starting units, so you and your starting units are the same. So you'll have those in your hand, and you have your spells, and that's about it. If you get extra drafts, they'll stay in your hand, but it is pretty low hand.
It gets to be about maybe 7 by the end of the game, but if you're holding on to that many cards, you're probably wreaking havoc on the battlefield instead, and so you don't need to play more cards. But it keeps pretty low. Yeah.
So another thing about the spells, though, is when you use them, they're exhausted. They go to your discard, and they're gone until your character rests. And they can act with 1 action instead of attacking to get your spells back. So,
and this is actually your leader acting, like not just any action, but your leader has to forego attacking and meditate to get their spells back.
And by leader, we mean
their action for the turn.
But yeah, so your traveler rests and gets it back. So if I really wanted to, and I wanted to meteor you every other turn, I could spend my AP in that fashion, which is relatively ineffective, but I could. In a way, it's kind of just like a cooldown system.
The thing is that it makes it so that if you're focused, it slows you down a little bit, and that gives the opponent a little area to breathe. If I can't cast like Fireball 3 times a turn, I can do it once a turn, and it's also expensive if I'm going to do it every single turn. And so, by diversifying and leveling up my other spells, or using other methods of attack, you get a little more economy out of it. So being a specialist is more expensive. Is the basic gist of it. Being a specialist is more expensive. Being a generalist is a little cheaper.
I see. Actually, I think what I really like about this game, and something I only realized very late into reading all of Chris's design blogs, is the fact that you somehow, some way, baked anti-aggro into the game. And I'm so surprised that you were able to do that in a way that was insidious. Like, it's not
with
blatant.
the reconstitution or time rewind.
Yeah, like you have to destabilize the timeline in order to permanently kill them. So I just realized now, like in the middle of this podcast, that's basically a baked-in anti-aggro system, and that amazes me. Wow.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say aggro is a strategy, right? But it's not the strategy, and there's counter strategies. I think that's
I know what you
the
mean.
Genius of it.
You can't just Hearthstone face.
You can't just smork. You can't just smork.
Yeah, you have to make a decision. Sorry, you can't just play Hunter. So but I know what you're saying. But there are definitely offensive strategies. It's not like you're going to camp the whole time. But I see what you mean, and it's definitely mitigated that way. So when the game starts, you are given 5 stability cards. If you lose them and die, then you're done, right? And each time you lose a stability card, you pick it up, you read it, and it's going to be you have 2 choices: 1, devastating effect, or lose an artifact. Your character starts with 1 artifact. Like Jin will have like a little charm, and you can sacrifice that artifact to Lovox, who flavor-wise is the god of time, the guy that you are bribing for this opportunity to manipulate time. He's the guy that fixes paradoxes. So when you die, you got to give him something for him to allow you to use your powers. That's flavor, right? So you can always use the ability or sacrifice an artifact, and you start with 1. You can draft more artifacts. And when you draft an artifact and you play it, it does automatically -1 stability to your opponent. So you can focus on drafting as a way to do damage. On the opposite end of that, then of course just.
But these artifacts are real expensive to play too. Before you go on, let me say, like they take like your entire turn to drop down on the table. So this is a very heavy control strategy to play artifacts to win.
Yeah, absolutely. They take 3 out of your 4 action points. They give you a passive, but you're getting them for that -1 stability on your opponents. But you're not attacking. You're not building your battle portion of the game.
How many artifacts per deck?
Well, there's 1 artifact per class, and each time period has 3 classes at a time.
So there's 9 artifacts.
9 in the deck, and you each start with 1. So you have it's not hard to find 10, but if you're both doing it, you probably want to look for another strategy.
Yeah,
I see.
If you play only artifacts, you will be devastated. Like it's just like because you have no defense, they'll just kill your guys, and then your traveler. So like you got to. That's one of the edges of this pyramid, right? You can draft and be defensive to do damage that way. The other way is, of course, kill the traveler. If you kill the traveler, they flip over, they're removed from the group, and they lose 1 stability, and they rewind at the start of their turn. The third way is to defeat any 2 cards. So if you have 2 units in your discard, they are banished, which is removed from the game, and they lose 1 stability. It seems offensive, but in this game it kind of isn't, because if I take out 2 of your units, it's only half as effective as taking out your traveler, and it's more about controlling the board as opposed to that being quote-unquote aggressive.
Cutting down your elements and stuff.
You'll be surprised at how many cards you actually lose. Like, your discard's going to have like 5 to 6 dudes max that died before this game is over. So focusing on that is, I needed to get rid of these guys because I couldn't deal with the board state as opposed to an offensive push. Yeah.
And most of the guys have really good, like, or decent enough defenses. Like it's about as much work to kill a traveler as it is to kill a particular guy. But you only get, but when a guy dies, or when a recruit dies, it's permanent. When a traveler dies, there's no board state change. Your opponent still has an entire board to fight you with, just the same as they did last turn. So
all right, because the traveler resurrects immediately.
Yeah, so if I'm killing travelers and you're killing guys, eventually you're going to have twice as many guys as I do, because all my guys are dead and nobody on your team has actually died. And so then you can overwhelm, with the improved spells, with the improved synergies, with all the stuff that you've got.
Is that the tagline to this game? Terran encounters. All my guys died.
Well, since it's an action point game, let's say I have 12 dudes. You'll never have 12 dudes, but let's say I have 12 characters. It's not like I can attack with all of them. Like, that's not possible. We're only gonna, if I spend my entire turn attacking, that's only 4 attacks out of my 4 AP. So at one point, your board can reach an apex of, is it really effective to play more guys? So maybe you want to focus more on the spells and then take out the traveler. And it just, in a way, self-balances. So
I see.
And it's still good to have more guys. They still give their synergy effects. They still give their elements, but you do reach peak combat potential pretty quickly.
Diminishing returns.
As the player who's behind too, that means that even if I'm down 3 guys, I only have to play down 2 or 3 characters, and suddenly I'm back at my at a reasonable amount of combat proficiency. So you don't get it's hard to completely steamroll your opponent.
I see.
It is possible. Like any game, if you're doing that good, then it's it'll be over pretty quick. I think one of the great things about it is that when it's over, it ends. When you've got your opponent locked down, the game ends pretty quickly.
The game is at a point where when your comp does break, that's when the game ends. And we made sure that was the point the game ended. So we put a lot of effort into that. So
it doesn't.
Yeah, a lot of testing.
It doesn't have the Civ 5 problem.
That's right. It does not have the same.
We used to back in testing. We had like 10 stability. You'd take your 6 damage and you'd be like, Chris, I don't think I'm coming back from this one.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when we started, I arbitrarily picked 20, and that was a huge mistake. And then I just kept cutting it, and I was like, I think this is it. And at what point is it over? So.
I see. So it's
just
good. So
testing stuff.
So it sounds like this action point and all the positioning makes it seem like it'll be a big hit among Pixel Tactics fans, wouldn't it?
I think so. I think that the audience between this and Pixel Tactics definitely similar. The game certainly stands on its own. There's room
Oh,
for both of
definitely.
these games in your collection. But if you are the kind of fan that enjoyed Pixel Tactics, I think that you'll have a good time with Turn Encounters. And I think that if you're the kind of fan that enjoyed BattleCon as well, that you'll have a good time with this one. I mean, it's pretty. It's got a lot of nuance in the ways you can do different things. The systems all kind of feed into one another in the same way. Like this will, each thing you do is going to kind of open up two new options for you. That's just really great. It's a really great game.
Sounds awesome. So, we're gonna end this segment with Chris giving us a short spiel. Tell us, why should we play Terran Encounters? You have 20 seconds. Go.
Because who doesn't like to draft and who doesn't like to battle? I mean, like, it's a drafting battle card game. I think that that like I tell people that and they're like, oh, tell me more. Like this is really interesting to a lot of people by default. And also, who doesn't like time travel? Like time travel is a great theme. It's baked into in this game's core mechanics and in all the art you'll see. And I really think that it pulls you into the fantasy really well.
And the game has really cool art.
Is there a Doctor Who
Well, yeah.
traveler?
Kind of.
Stretch goals.
Like
Stretch goals, my friend.
as a little bonus,
Cool.
just going back to the traveler spells, because they have all 6 elements. Character design wise, it's been a lot of fun because I've had to make very multidimensional characters as opposed to the fire guy. You know,
The fire.
so I'm really happy with the traveler gens coming out. And I think people are going to connect to them pretty well.
All right. And that pretty much does it for our Game Club segment of this week, and also our Character of the Week this week, because our Game Club was Terran Encounters, made by our Character of the Week, who is Chris, because he's our special Mondo Awesome guest. So let's move on to the 99 question segment, where we ask
Mondo
the
Awesome.
questions. Yeah, Mondo Awesome. I don't know, Brad, okay? I don't know, okay? I'm not a primary
Okay,
English speaker, okay? It's not my mother tongue.
I don't think we've used Mondo since 1980 perhaps.
Wow, I wasn't alive back then.
Yeah. So which begs the question: why do you even know this?
Mondo mini games. There's like an animation studio that made Batman, Spider-Man, so that's why I know.
What?
Okay, I will.
Those aren't even real things.
Batman, Spider-Man is a web series wherein there are these two caricatures of Batman and Spider-Man, and they talk like children. And then like there's an entire episode where Spider-Man forgets how to count. So he's like 1, 2, 3, and he keeps forgetting what 4 is. And then Batman comes in and he goes like, Spider-Man, don't you remember? 4 is your house. And he's like, oh yes, 4 is my house. And that was the entire episode. It's way better than it sounds, okay? Look, I'll send you a link later. But let's move on to our 99 questions segment. Don't judge.
Okay, yeah, let's move on. Let's speak no more of this.
Speak no more of this. Let's move on to our 99 questions segment, where we will answer some of the hot pressing questions you guys have for Brad and Chris, because I chose questions that actually apply to both of you. Okay, number 1. Do you feel like being a game designer makes you mentally take apart every game and then inhibit your ability to just sit back and enjoy?
Yes. That's the hardest yes I've ever had.
I don't know. Nah. I think I got over that.
I have to actively do it. You know, like
Yeah.
it's not default. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, I meet a lot of designers that that do have to pick apart everything, and like, I mean, and I try to make them play like Flux and Munchkin and games like that with me, just cause
They lose it.
like. Well, I mean, here's the thing: like, you play not to trigger anybody, just because when you kind of remember like what why you play these games, what's really fun about them, and in a game like this example, my favorite game, my go-to game for this is called Magical Athlete, and it's this Z-Man game where you pick a team of like foot racers from this fantasy universe, and you roll a die. And they move that many spaces, and whoever gets to the finish line first wins. And they have all these goofy powers that are completely unpredictable and sabotage each other. And game is great. It's hilarious. Everyone will be laughing by the end of the game, but it's not high design,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I have to play that periodically to to remind myself not to be a design snob, because there's so many good games, and a game is good if you can have fun with your friends and family, and anything beyond that is is just art and not really gameplay. So,
I see.
and yeah, and it's nice to be able to appreciate art and as a designer and the art of game design, but you have to remember that first and foremost, it's about the play, and it's about the time spent with family and friends.
It's pretty good that you get to that point. It's just like
You
the
get there
easier
eventually.
you can do that, the more you can enjoy games. I'm not saying I don't enjoy games, but,
I see.
It's a
I see.
default to it, So
Yeah, I think for me it's like, not that I'm a designer, but like for me it's like I just have pet peeves. Like if I can usually forgive most things, but if there's like a specific thing on one of my list of specific things I just dislike, that's what inhibits me from just sitting back and enjoying, and it just turns me into like, this is such poor design and it's not fun anymore. But maybe I'm just a big whiner.
I also like
Maybe
games
so.
though.
Oh man, there's nothing more fun than playing a game that's really bad.
If it's mediocre,
It's like
it's
watching
the
a bad
worst
movie.
possible thing. If it's mediocre, I'm not having fun. But if it's really bad, I can have fun.
Oh
I
man, but
see.
that's the thing. Like that's when I guess that's what I'm saying, is like when a game is not high design, that's when you realize that you make your own fun.
Yeah.
I think that's the like the moment of epiphany, is like, oh yeah, it doesn't really matter what game we're playing. We're always making our own fun. It's just that some games facilitate, but that's not necessary.
The
People make
fun
fun.
was in you all along.
Exactly. The fun is inside of you.
So let's move on to the next question. Do you read or watch reviews of your games? And if so, how do you handle the criticism that comes along with that?
Yeah, I'll go first on this one because I've only released one game. So I've definitely watched every review and read every article. And it's not like I get butthurt or anything. Like, even people that don't didn't like it or something negative to say, like, let's just get information. Like, just ask her why didn't this person enjoy it, and try to understand that, and that can really just help you out. Like, even the greatest games have people that don't like them. So I don't know, you just can't take it to heart.
I think it's good advice. I read the reviews. I'm not a big video review person. Sorry, Ferdinand. I do watch Ferdinand's, but I don't watch all the video reviews. Because I do feel like I just want to read it and get to the main opinions. Because a lot of the reviews are like, oh, how does it play? What's the mechanics? The stuff that you'd actually want to know if you were considering purchasing. But I'm
But I
not.
made
I
this
just want
game.
to hear the lowdown. The analysis. I do think that a lot of reviews kind of lack that critical analysis, though. Like, a game, they'll tell me whether they like the game or not, but they won't say, like this is the reason that the design works or doesn't work or is stale or does more or less than other games in the genre, etc., etc. Like, I think that probably it's probably just a maturity of the review
Reviewer.
community.
Mm.
Yeah, like we haven't reached that point where we have enough language to talk about the games. in a good
Yeah,
way.
okay. Yeah, I understand what you mean. But
Yeah.
hopefully we don't stretch into the movie review, because it's like the movie review goes up and then it reaches a peak and then it just goes down a bit.
But yeah, I don't listen too much to the reviews. Especially if I'm considering purchasing a game, I won't watch the reviews.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because or even if I'm watching a movie, I don't want to watch the reviews, because I don't want somebody to tell me whether the game is good or bad. I want to know that for myself. I want to experience that for myself. If you get a game and you already know it's good, then there's no, I don't know. There's not as much sense of discovery. Maybe I'm just being silly.
No, I understand. I don't do movie reviews either. Like, I just want to see it, and sometimes I enjoyed it because it was like designed for people like me. This can apply to games too, so I enjoyed it. But in the big picture, critically, probably bad. But whatever, I had a good time.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, like say like Batman vs Superman. I didn't want to read reviews, but when you go to a movie and people have already told you, oh, this movie is bad, then you have a low expectation and you are more likely to be biased. If you go to a movie not knowing what people are saying about it, then you form your own opinion, and then people say, oh, well, it's good, oh, it's bad, and you can have kind of more of an unintelligent dialogue with them about that.
Nice. And finally, let's move on to this last question, which I think is like the listener or whoever the question asker is. They're trying to steal some of our ideas, because what are the best ideas you've woken up to in the middle of the night and then written down?
Oh my god.
They're trying to steal some board game ideas off of you.
Okay, the Traveler spell thing definitely came to me at like 2 a.m. That was one of the things I actually woke up and like wrote down. I have like a notebook under my mattress, so I don't know.
Wow.
I probably do most of my game design in bed, like actually what you just said. So.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So how about you, Brad? Have you woken up something sweaty and going like,
maybe I used to back when I first started these things, but now I approach it more as like in a more industrial fashion, I guess. So I do my work, and then when I go to bed, I want to like listen to an audiobook or sit and chat with my wife or something, and not think about like designing board games all night long. That's just my like I guess it comes from doing this all day for 8 hours, but it's a job at that point.
oh no, Brad's a corporate drone. Just kidding. Where has your soul gone? Sell out.
Yeah. But I do get good ideas, and I jot those down. I think the idea for Esper came when I was sleeping. So but those are just like big ideas, not mechanics and stuff.
I see.
Those don't tend to come to me at night.
All right, so there's your answer, and I think they didn't give you all of the answers because you'd steal it, listener. So don't steal original
It's too
ideas.
expensive to steal board games,
Yeah, that's true. All right. So that pretty much does it for our 99 questions segment, wherein we just answered some of your pressing questions. It's currently episode 26, so we're pretty close to having to restart the entire podcast. So at that point, your new hosts will introduce you to the 99 questions segment. But until then, Brad and I are here with Chris Solis. And finally, we'll move on
Brad and Barco. Those are the hosts for season 2. Brad and Barco.
Brad and Barco. And Cirque. Yeah, Cirque. All right. And let's move on to our final segment, our News 99, wherein we will deliver hot-baked news into the oven that is your ears. Brad, Chris.
Doesn't that mean that their ears are creating the news, like, or are making the news take form? Like, like when you put bread in an oven, it's. These analogies are so bad, Marco. Like, I'm just gonna come out and say it. These analogies are not good.
Okay.
Like with a capital N, capital G, not good.
Okay, so let's workshop them later. But for now, we'll workshop them later. Okay, this is a process. It's a process, much like baking bread. It's a process. See there. Okay, that's a good analogy.
In someone's ear.
In someone's ear. So Chris, do you have news for us? Brad, do you have news for us? I guess Brad first.
Well, I mean, the big news is going to be the Terran Encounters Kickstarter, obviously. That'll be happening in the next few weeks. After you hear this, it's probably pretty close to going up if it's not up already. I don't know how far out we're buffered on this podcast, but should be pretty soon. And you get a chance to get this. You get a chance to get the Premium Collector's Edition. And with some stretch goals, we'll have lots of cool alternate timelines that you can explore. So we're really excited to be bringing Terran Encounters to Kickstarter for you.
All right, and Chris, what's your news? Or are you gonna copy Brad's homework?
Yeah, Brad definitely nailed it. I mean, that's definitely what I'm focusing on. That's what I'm doing. On Facebook, we have a Terran Encounters group, and the page is really active with art shares and people talking about the game. So if you're interested, you're gonna join the Terran Encounters Facebook group, and that's a great place to join the discussion immediately and really get involved with the game.
All right, that's awesome. And with that ends this episode of the Level Cap podcast. As usual, the birds are singing, heralding the end to this wonderful podcast that was hosted by me, your host, Marco DeSantos, also known as the Mechanic Critic. Mechanic Critic. Wow, I forgot my own name. And with me is my wonderful co-host,
Me, Brad, who is over here in the birds, like Snow White. The birds are singing on my shoulder.
Is Brad a princess?
Zippity-doo-dah. I might be a fantasy princess. I don't know.
Excellent. And our fantasy prince is special guest, Chrysalis.
I'm a prince now. All right.
All right. See, you now own a fiefdom, and we will see/hear all of you guys next week. Bye bye.
This ending got really weird.
Yeah.
This is not normal, Chris. This is weirder than usual.
Because they're birds. Bye bye.
They are. They start singing. They start singing around this time of day. All the birds.
Wow. The
I'm gonna
hills
go ahead
are
and turn this off.
alive with the sound of music.